Late 2024, the world was watching, but no one could have predicted what was about to unfold in South Korea, a nation that, until that night, seemed like a model of stability and modernity in East Asia. South Korea, famous for its global K-pop phenomenon, cutting-edge technology, and lightning-fast trains, was suddenly thrust into chaos. The streets that usually pulsed with music and neon lights were now filled with anxiety and uncertainty. People who had just been singing along to their favorite idols were glued to their phones, watching history unfold in real time. In a matter of hours, the country found itself in the grip of a political meltdown that felt ripped straight from the pages of a dystopian thriller. Government buildings were thrown into chaos, and the air was thick with rumors and fear. The sense of normalcy shattered as armored vehicles rolled through the capital and police sirens echoed through the night. President Yoon Suk Yeol, whose approval ratings had plummeted to historic lows, made a desperate move. He declared martial law, suspending civil liberties and sending shockwaves through the nation. On live television, he accused members of parliament of being pro-North Korean traitors, painting his political opponents as enemies of the state. This wasn't a slow-burning crisis. It was a reckless, high-stakes power grab that blindsided not just South Koreans, but the entire world. News outlets from Tokyo to Washington scrambled to make sense of the headlines, while ordinary citizens watched in disbelief as their democracy teetered on the edge. The president's plan was as audacious as it was dangerous: provoke North Korea, manufacture a sense of emergency, and use the resulting chaos to seize absolute power. Parliament erupted in furious debate, while soldiers were deployed to sensitive border areas, raising fears of a wider conflict. But the people of South Korea refused to be silenced. Protesters flooded the streets, waving flags and demanding the restoration of democracy. Riot police clashed with demonstrators, but the spirit of resistance only grew stronger. The world watched as a spectacularly failed coup attempt unfolded, testing the very foundations of South Korea's democracy. Buckle up. This is the story of the coup that couldn't, the war that wasn't, and a president who gambled everything on a terrible idea. In the end, it was a night that would be remembered for generations, a night when South Korea almost broke, but ultimately proved just how resilient democracy can be. To justify martial law, Yoon's administration needed a crisis, so they tried to manufacture one. Starting in October, South Korean military drones buzzed North Korean airspace, some dropping propaganda leaflets, others crashing and leaking secrets. Artillery drills and Apache helicopters followed, all designed to provoke a North Korean response. A leaked memo revealed plans for potential strikes on symbolic North Korean targets, hoping to trigger a military reaction. When North Korea didn't bite, Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun even tried to order a direct strike over trash balloons. The Joint Chiefs refused, recognizing the insanity of starting a war over garbage. This moment showed not everyone in power had lost their minds. So, how did North Korea respond to all this provocation? Not with missiles, but with trash, literally. Pyongyang sent thousands of balloons filled with garbage drifting over the border, humiliating Seoul and denying Yoon the crisis he craved. This strategic patience made Yoon's government look desperate and ridiculous. North Korea's restraint was likely influenced by its military commitments in Ukraine and its new ties with Russia. Instead of war, Kim Jong-un opted for psychological warfare, mocking the South and exposing the absurdity of Yoon's provocations. The garbage campaign was cheap, effective, and devastatingly humiliating for Seoul. Kim's trolling outmaneuvered Yoon at every turn. The world watched as South Korea's government was undone by a bag of trash. With his plan in ruins, Yoon went on TV and declared martial law, blaming the opposition for being pro-North Korean. Troops moved to occupy government buildings, especially the National Assembly, trying to physically block lawmakers from overturning his decree. The sight of soldiers surrounding parliament was a shocking throwback to South Korea's authoritarian past, but Yoon miscalculated. His own party and cabinet turned against him. The leader of his party, Han Dong-hoon, condemned the move, and cabinet members resigned in protest. Yoon's attempt to seize power was met with outrage, not obedience. The nation saw not a strongman, but a desperate leader abandoned by his allies. The coup was already unraveling. As news of martial law swept across the nation, South Koreans from all walks of life poured into the streets, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of candlelight. The air was thick with tension, but also with hope, as thousands gathered in the heart of Seoul and beyond, determined to defend their fragile democracy in real time. The protests grew rapidly, with students, workers, and families standing shoulder to shoulder, united by a single purpose: to resist the sudden power grab and protect the freedoms they had fought so hard to achieve. Soldiers, many of them young and uncertain, hesitated at the edges of the crowds. They faced a sea of peaceful citizens, people who could have been their neighbors, friends, or even family members, standing up for their rights with remarkable restraint. The military, ordered to enforce martial law, found themselves unwilling to confront the very people they were sworn to protect. Meanwhile, lawmakers faced their own obstacles. Blocked from entering the National Assembly by police loyal to the president, some politicians refused to be deterred. In a dramatic display of resolve, they scaled fences and walls, determined to fulfill their duty to the nation and uphold the Constitution, no matter the personal risk. Inside the Parliament chamber, the atmosphere was electric. In a stunning and unprecedented show of unity, 190 members of the National Assembly, across party lines, voted to nullify martial law just 2.5 hours after Yoon's televised address. Their swift action sent a powerful message: the rule of law and the will of the people would not be so easily overturned. As the news spread, the military began to stand down. Barricades that had blocked city streets were quietly removed by soldiers, some of whom joined in the celebrations. The people erupted in joy, waving South Korean flags and embracing one another, their relief and pride palpable in the night air. Yoon's attempted coup, which had threatened to plunge the country into chaos, collapsed in mere hours, not days or weeks. The swift and decisive response from both the public and their representatives left no room for doubt. The president's power grab was not only thwarted by the courage of ordinary citizens, but also by the resolve of politicians who refused to be intimidated. Together they sent a clear and resounding message: South Korea would not return to the days of authoritarian rule. Democracy prevailed, not through violence or force, but through the extraordinary courage and unity of a people determined to shape their own destiny. The protests remained peaceful, a testament to the nation's commitment to nonviolent resistance and democratic values. Across the country, citizens refused to be provoked or divided. Instead, they turned away from calls for unrest, choosing solidarity and hope over fear and chaos. In doing so, they protected not just their government, but the very soul of their nation. The world watched in awe as South Korea delivered a masterclass in democratic resilience, showing that the true strength of a nation lies in the unity and courage of its people. In the aftermath of the failed coup, investigators uncovered a plot that was even more chilling than anyone had imagined. Deep within the ranks of the military, a covert special forces unit had been assembled, their orders shrouded in secrecy. These operatives were allegedly prepared to move at a moment's notice, tasked with a mission that went far beyond simply seizing power. Their targets included not only political enemies but also Yoon's own allies, anyone who might stand in the way. The plan was ruthless: arrest or assassinate key figures to eliminate all opposition, regardless of loyalty or past alliances. What made this plot even more sinister was the use of deception on a grand scale. The operatives had acquired North Korean military uniforms, intending to disguise themselves as enemy soldiers. Their goal was to stage attacks that would appear to be orchestrated by Pyongyang, creating chaos and confusion at the highest levels of government and the military. By framing North Korea for these violent acts, the conspirators hoped to justify a declaration of war, plunging the peninsula into conflict and using the chaos to cement their own control. The scale of the operation was staggering. 200 replica uniforms were procured, enough to outfit an entire battalion. The conspirators planned to stage elaborate scenes, including fake North Korean rescue attempts and even orchestrated attacks on U.S. soldiers stationed in South Korea. Their intention was clear: provoke outrage, trigger American military intervention, and create a pretext for martial law. The entire operation was designed to manipulate public perception and international response, all in the name of holding on to power. As news of the plot began to surface, the nation was gripped by shock and disbelief. While some details remain unconfirmed, the sheer audacity and recklessness of the plan left citizens reeling. People gathered around televisions and radios, desperate for updates, struggling to comprehend how close their country had come to disaster. In the corridors of power, Tempers flared and trust evaporated. The conspirators had shown they were willing to risk all-out war, not just with North Korea, but potentially with the United States as well, all to cling to their positions. The failed coup was more than just a political miscalculation. It was a brush with catastrophe that could have changed the course of history. The streets, once filled with tension and uncertainty, now stood as silent witnesses to what might have been. The exposure of the plot deepened the sense of betrayal and outrage among ordinary citizens. Protests erupted, and the public demanded accountability from those who had so recklessly endangered the nation. In the end, South Korea had narrowly avoided disaster. The nation emerged shaken but resolute, determined to safeguard its democracy and ensure that such a plot could never threaten its future again. Why risk everything? Yoon's presidency was a disaster. Unpopular policies, anti-labor moves, and corruption scandals, especially involving his wife. His approval rating was abysmal, and he faced investigations and a hostile parliament. Instead of facing accountability, Yoon tried to manufacture a crisis to save himself. The martial law plan was never about national security. It was about political survival. Yoon gambled the nation's future to escape his own failures. In the end, his desperation only sealed his downfall. The failed coup ended Yoon's presidency instantly. The opposition impeached him for sedition and insurrection, and he holed up in the presidential palace before finally being arrested. Yoon now faces charges that could carry the death penalty. His inner circle was also arrested, including the defense minister, who later attempted suicide in custody. Evidence was destroyed in a suspicious fire, but the investigation pressed on. The system Yoon once led as prosecutor now dismantled his conspiracy. In a twist, opposition leader Lee Jae-myung, once targeted for assassination, became the new president. The coup backfired, elevating its intended victim. South Korea's political landscape has been upended, and the new government faces the challenge of healing a fractured nation. The trials of Yoon and his allies will force the country to confront its darkest democratic crisis. Inter-Korean relations remain tense, with trust at an all-time low. The U.S. response was muted, raising questions about the alliance's future. Regional powers are wary, and the failed coup is a cautionary tale for democracies everywhere. But it's also a story of hope. Ordinary citizens, lawmakers, and principled military leaders saved their democracy. They refused to let one man's desperation destroy their country. The world saw the true strength of South Korea's people. The question now, can they build lasting peace from the chaos they overcame?